Hey everybody, Livingston here. Today we're going to be diving into another fun-filled episode of the Twilight Zone. This time it's Season 3, Episode 24, To Serve Man. Came out March the 2nd, 1962. Looking forward to jumping into this episode because I have seen it before. It is a episode that I watched maybe about 10 years ago with my dad. One of those things that we just popped on the television and suddenly we're like, hey, a Twilight Zone. And at that point, I didn't watch as many Twilight Zones as I have now, and I have seen more Twilight Zones. We just haven't watched the episodes yet, so looking forward to seeing what other episodes that I will be diving into again that I've already seen, and this happens to be one of them, and we're actually watching this episode on my birthday. Today is my birthday, March 19th. I turned the big 4-0. Where I'm at right now is just make the most of life as long as you're here. We'll see what happens along the way, right? That's the only way we can go. I would also like to thank you for all subscribing to this channel. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to make my birthday even better, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that like button. I really do appreciate it, everybody. And with that being said, let's jump into your comments for last week's episode, The Last Rites of Jeff Myrtlebank. Antarctic Orb 9197 says, the Twilight Zone and the Outer Limits were required viewing in my house when I was growing up. That's a heck of a place to be growing up. I had 3 older sisters and 1 older brother, and I grew up scared shit. I don't know, it has the dots. Because they were watching all this stuff, but I learned to love it. Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to love. It's one of those things that Outer Limits and the Twilight Zone just have great storytelling, and that's what all we can ask for when it comes to television shows and movies. And books too, I do read. Jonathan Stein says, a fun little country tale. It was a fun little country tale. It kind of was dark in the end, I would say. I didn't know exactly how to take the ending other than the fact that he probably ended up coming back as a demon, maybe, from hell. Kind of seemed that way since he lit his own fire and he had a son that ended up becoming a politician. But yeah, the way the actual tale went, it was very lighthearted. The music was very, fun. It was just a fun little episode, as you said. Natalie Compton says, may I suggest watching 2 things that most people haven't seen that you may be interested in since you like sci-fi. One is something very strange that Disney made called Mars and Beyond, made in 1957. Second is a movie called Brainstorm, made in 1983. Christopher Walken and Natalie Wood were in it. It is a weird movie too, but please take into account that the subject was ahead of its time, and the actress Natalie Wood died before the movie was finished, so they changed the ending of the movie in order to keep her scenes in the film, which was sweet of them to do. Natalie Wood was my mom's favorite actress, so that is how I got my name. So I got to see a lot of movies, of her movies. Sorry for the long comment. No problem. No reason to be sorry. Very much appreciate the comment, and I will check out those movies. Mars and Beyond, made in 1957. I will look that up, and Brainstorm. I might watch that for the channel, so we'll see. Michael Alexis Stalling says, this episode is in my top 10. James Best, simply terrific with everything he was in. Some may not know that he appeared in many TV and movie westerns, often as the bad guy, had a recurring character on The Andy Griffith Show, and of course Roscoe P. Coltrane in The Dukes of Hazzard. Thanks for letting us know. I didn't know that. I might have seen him in The Dukes of Hazzard. I've actually watched quite a few episodes of The Dukes of Hazzard. It's just funny how many times you actually come across certain actors that you see throughout all your life, and it turns out you just don't recognize them because they're just so good at playing character actors. Jack Dorsey, 4850, says, when I first saw this episode, I was 5 years old. It scared me. Now that I am 75 years old, I love it. Yeah, it's different. It's just weird how things change. Your perspective on things is very different compared to what it was when you were a kid. I definitely have those moments too where I'm watching something and I'm like, wow, I love this. And it turned out I hated it when I was a kid or a teenager. But yeah, very interesting how your perspective changes throughout your life. Robert Schulenberger says, the next reaction I'm looking forward to is such a classic, To Serve Man. I want to see how long it takes you to figure out the ending to this Twilight Zone episode with Richard Keel this upcoming Wednesday. Well, I already seen it, so I'm sorry to, let you down there. But yeah, it's kind of hard not to see this episode since it's considered one of the classics. They kind of label it in IMDb that this episode here is a classic, and this was definitely highlighted. So yeah, but hey, we're going to rewatch it and see if I can see anything new in this episode, maybe looking at it from a different perspective. So let's dive in and see what we're getting into.
Your next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Cigarettes. 3 out of 5 doctors recommend a cigarette.
It is the meal time. Kindly state your preference.
Steak, eggs.
Please deposit cigarettes in appropriate receptacle. This is a safety measure. You do not care for food at this time?
Yes, I do not care for food at this time.
Very well.
He's being kept. I know the ending, but I kind of forget some of the story.
Please conserve water.
What time is it?
There is no time in space.
I said, what time is it? What time is it on Earth? Can you tell me that without an exercise in Euclidean
It's not on
geometry?
Earth.
What
New
time
clue.
is it on Earth?
On Earth, it would be 12 noon.
Is that Eastern Standard Time or Central?
This is the way nightmares begin, and yet so terribly real that even while they're happening, we live with them and digest them. You don't think about 12 o'clock noon on the next day, or the day after that. But that's what we should have been thinking about. Tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. We were preoccupied with the hands on a clock, when we should have been checking off a calendar.
Oh, flashback.
It was an April day, and it was noon then too.
Times Square.
There was Berlin to worry about, and Indochina and Algeria somehow had lost their incisive edge of horror because we were so familiar with it.
Uh-oh.
And that's when it happened. That's when we first heard that they had come. That's when we should have prepared ourselves for any eventuality, but we didn't. While the Secretary General of the United Nations made the first official announcement of the arrival of creatures from outer space. They called themselves Canamites.
At 11 o'clock this morning, Eastern Standard Time, the first of these landings took place in an area just outside of Newark, New Jersey. In the Soviet Union, in Norway, the southern coast of France, the world population remained calm to make no hostile move. That all governments are being apprised of the events as they happen.
What do they look like?
Yeah, what do they look like?
Information. Give us information.
It appears that one of the craft has landed just a few blocks away.
That close?
Okay, well, screw this meeting. Let's get down there. Wait, they're coming here. Never mind. How's it going? I like how they're using the shadow. Very old school filmmaking, using the shadow. Spielberg did it a lot.
Height a little over 9 feet. Origin unknown. Motives, therein hangs the tale. For in just a moment, we're going to ask you to shake hands figuratively with a Christopher Columbus from another galaxy and another time. This is the Twilight Zone.
A distant Christopher Columbus to serve man. It's one of the deeper episodes of the Twilight Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Earth, we greet you in peace and friendship. Our own methods of communication are mental rather than verbal. Our intentions are honorable. And in the near future to set up reciprocal visits between Earth people and Canamites.
And surely some of the questions asked by your representatives must have been identical to more than a few of your own. Brutality is a far more universal language to us than an expression of friendship from outer space.
And the television cameras are carrying our meeting throughout the world.
I will be glad to.
Precisely why have you chosen this planet for your visit?
That Earth has been plagued by both natural and unnatural catastrophes. We are here to help you.
Indeed, if we should prefer not to avail ourselves of the various aids that you mentioned.
We will not force anything on you. You will take only that which you choose to take. We will demonstrate to all interested parties a new and extremely interesting power source, and which can supply a form of electric power for entire countries.
Nice. Must be standing on a platform.
We can demonstrate to you quite practically the principles of the force field, absolutely impenetrable by bombs, missiles, or anything else.
Sounds great.
We ask only that you trust us.
Where do we sign? What does that say?
They were 9 feet tall enigmas who descended on us like locusts. But nobody was counting or worrying.
Colonel, it took us almost a year to crack the Japanese code. We had an army of men working on that. People from outer space, probably 500 times as intelligent as we are and 1,000 times more complex.
You need more help.
I showed this to every man on our staff. I've had a dozen people working on it since late last night. We've tried every known method of cryptography there is, and I don't know whether we're even close or a million miles away. I'll tell you something, Colonel. This is a tough nut. This is a real tough nut.
The White House seems to feel that if we can decipher what this book says, we can find out what these Canamites are up to.
He hasn't commented on the loss of this book. They've done all right by us so far.
Parlor tricks.
That new approach to nitrate use they demonstrated in Argentina this morning. That soil had more vitamins in it 6 hours later than a drugstore chain. We might lick this, we might not. But I got a strange feeling. What? We're looking a gift horse in the mouth. And if these candidates are as helpful as I think they are, you boys are going to be out of a job.
Am I to assume this is a scientific analysis, Mr. Chambers, or just some Kentucky windage?
Windage.
It tells me that when this earth gets enough to eat, and there are no more wars or diseases or famines, this is going to be a Garden of Eden.
You continue your process of deciphering until you can tell us precisely, and I mean precisely, what that book says.
Yeah, I just can't trust anybody who just comes down from space and goes, we're going to give you everything you'll ever need. Nothing's ever that easy.
I'd call that a reasonably altruistic phrase. Do you agree, Patty?
Well, I want to believe it, but...
To serve man. I fervently hope so.
Is there more to translate, or is they just doing the cover?
At the request of several of our delegates, and with the full consent of our guests, the Canamates, kindly lower the screen.
These are the standard instruments used to determine the truth of a statement. Since the physiology of the Canamates is unknown to us, we will now repeat one of the many experiments made in an effort to discover this fact. This instrument records the subject's heartbeat. This one shows the electrical conductivity of the skin in the palm of the hand. This one shows the pattern and intensity of the electrical waves emanating from the subject's brain.
Yeah, Richard Keir, he just doesn't get a lot of talking parts. Played Jaws, didn't say much. I mean, he was in Happy Gilmore, and he had a few lines in that.
How did you get to this planet?
Walked.
Haha.
How did you get to this planet?
In a spaceship.
Hey, that's the truth.
You and I and the rest of this earth had a ringside seat to the rebirth of every dream man had ever dreamed.
Nous allons désarmer la moitié de notre armée.
One half, huh?
Están muy orgullosos de nuestros bienhechores de más allá.
We're gonna give in.
Santa Claus came through. Arid deserts became gardens with the devices the Canamates showed. The force field that was to end war did precisely that. Armies and navies were practically disbanded.
Yeah, I just wouldn't do that.
Please check your guest visa. This is flight number 267 from Earth to our planet.
The sun never goes down.
And their clothing.
Yeah, once you're on that ship, you're done for.
Shops, and you can pick out as much of it as you want.
Just seeing how much. Oh, very nice.
But it's an entire planet, bigger than China.
Stand aside, please. I have diplomatic visa.
It's just one big holiday when you get there. They've even got a form of baseball or something like it. Leagues and everything, just like we've got.
Man, I don't think I'll want to come back once you do get.
Probably won't.
I'm going home, boss. Need me for anything?
Need you for anything like what?
Nobody needs to decipher much of anything anymore because there aren't any more codes. Well, not reading about the hydrogen bomb or war scares or insurrections.
And for every one of them that comes, a few thousand of us take off in one of their ships to live with them. The fantastic ease with which human beings make adjustments. And they think this is the most historic moment that's ever happened in the history of mankind. 1 year later, they stand in line, waiting to take off in a spaceship. A weekend picnic in the country. Strange and complex sanity of man. Nothing faces it.
Are you going?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm on a 10-year exchange group waiting list.
Mm-hmm. You know, deciphering that title, well, it's been of no help. Because their capital letters are different than the other signs they use, just as ours are. But it's starting to fall into place now. I think I'll get the answer eventually.
Better hurry up.
This is flight number 914 from Earth to our planet.
Mr. Chambers! Mr. Chambers! The rest of the book, To Serve Man, it's a cookbook!
What?
No! 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 No!
Too late. If you just waited just a little bit.
You have not eaten enough, Mr. Chambers. Enjoy.
No. Fat me up.
Please, Mr. Chambers, eat. We wouldn't want you to lose weight.
Next on the menu.
How about you? You still on Earth or on the ship with me?
I'm not on the ship with you.
Really doesn't make very much difference because sooner or later, will all of us be on the menu?
The recollections of one Michael Chambers, or more simply stated, the evolution of man. The metamorphosis from being the ruler of a planet to an ingredient in someone's soup from the Twilight Zone.
Okay. Definitely a bleak episode. One of those episodes where it's like, oh no, you know what's going to happen and everyone's going to be eaten up in the world. If they were smart, they would let people continue on and say like, man, we only bring people like every 10 years or so. Like, get your cattle, get the people who want to go, and then whoever's going has to stay. Like, make that a rule. And then whoever does go, that becomes your meat. And they go on to the next planet and the next planet, and then come back every 10 years or so and just keep picking people up, you know? And then if they just kind of keep going and maybe they start getting more advanced, then I guess take them out at that point. But I don't know why I'm on the side of the aliens in this topic. But when it comes to the episode, I can see why it's one of the best episodes of the Twilight Zone due to the fact that the way the story is told, the way it kind of comes across that these aliens are positive beings. There's nothing bad about them. They don't want to fight. They want to end wars. Like, what people wouldn't want to take that and think it's a gift from God, basically? And turns out it's really just not. I mean, when they were getting the lie detector and they were trying to go through and ask them questions on what was going on, if they were there for a good reason or not. And I mean, they can control their emotions or advanced beings. So, of course, they would be able to beat a lie detector. So, I mean, there's always plausibility in the Twilight Zone. That's what makes great storytelling for these episodes that we consistently see all the time. And they just kind of keep dishing out greatness every episode. There's some episodes that aren't so great. They're just good. They're still good stories in general. But this one kind of puts it up over the second tier going into the first one, and that's what makes a lot of great episodes, with asking the question, what would you do in that situation? I think when you can get through and make people believe that they could potentially be in a situation like the one we just witnessed, it really makes people more engaged in the story. And that's what makes this such a great one. Let me know, comment below what you thought of this episode. I'd like to know your thoughts. Let's dive into some trivia and see what it took to get this episode off the ground. All of the 9-foot-tall Kenamites are played by the same actor, 7-foot-2-inch tall Richard Keel. This is most apparent at the end when two identical Kenamites stand near the same ship in a split-screen effect. In the source story, the aliens are short and look like hairy pigs that walk upright and go by the name Kenamite. In this televised version, they're called Kenamites, and they all look like Richard Keel wearing prosthetic big brain. The voiceover on the Kenamite spaceship is Joseph Ruskin, who played the genie in Season 2's The Man in the Bottle, 1960. The newspaper that Patty picks up is the actual June 14, 1961 edition of the Los Angeles Times. The topmost headline reads, "Specialist checks John F. Kennedy's back." The main banner headline reads, "4-hour power outage brings chaos to New York," which refers to the previous evening's power failure in New York City. The only episode in the series where someone other than Rod Serling directly addresses the audience. Damon Knight's short story To Serve Man first appeared in the November 1950 issue of Galaxy Science Fiction and has been reprinted a number of times, including in Frontiers in Space, Far Out, and The Best of Damon Knight. It was awarded the 1951 Retro Hugo Award for Best Short Story in 2001. 32 years later, Lloyd Brockner would parody his role in To Serve Man in The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear. KRO Radio in Pasadena, Los Angeles used to use the dialogue when Michael Chambers asked Kenamite the time, "What time is it?" to announce the midday time. On Earth, it is 12 noon. The image of the flying saucer toward the end is from Earth versus the Flying Saucers, 1956. The establishing shot of the New York City's Times Square area is stock footage from 1949, as both visible movie marquees, the Strand in the upper left as well as the Globe Theater mid-left, are showing two films, My Dream Is Yours 1949 and Champion 1949, at the aforementioned cinemas respectively, which were both playing at that time. At the beginning of the episode, it is announced that the first alien landing was just outside of Newark, New Jersey, which is the same area that the aliens landed in Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, a radio broadcast in 1938 program which Rod Serling would have been very familiar with. Although the Kennemite makeup design eschewed the source story's description of them as short and pig-like, the Twilight Zone had previously showcased a tribe of pig-like people in Eye of the Beholder in 1960. The retractable stairwell that leads up into the spaceship is the exact same prop used in Forbidden Planet 1956 that always comes up, as well as Twilight Zone Season 4 On Thursday We Leave for Home. The two shots of the flying saucer in the sky before it lands are clips directly from The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951. The speech of the Secretary General of the United Nations is directly inspired by the famous broadcasters who appeared in said movie seeking to both calm and inform the public. That always happens in a lot of the movies. They did it in Independence Day. They've done it in quite a few movies like this television show. The flight that is about to take with Chambers is flight number 914. This is the telephone area code for the town Rod Serling lived in. The interior of the Kennemite spacecraft shows what appears to be a spiral CFL bulb. The CFL wasn't invented until 1976. Appears in 3 astronomy documentaries by Space Viz. Contact, The Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, 1995, Odyssey of Survival, 1999, and Planetary Defense, 2007. The latter work was nominated for a 2008 Arthur Clarke Award in the UK. The Arthurs, as they are known, are recognized as the Oscars in British space achievements. Fellow nominees in 2008 included in the Shadow of the Moon, Sir Richard Branson, and Professor Stephen Hawking. The source story ends with a declaration it is a cookbook spoken calmly and sardonically by a male colleague of the narrator. The line is retained, but its delivery and setting are different in this televised version. In 1976, Owlswick Press, Philadelphia, published a book titled To Serve Man, a cookbook for people by Carl Worf. I don't know, it's got like 2 dots above the U. It contains 71 recipes, all use people, including chile con ombre, Arabian tomato and infidel soup, and Hungarian goulash and blood sausage. It is dedicated to Damon Knight for the name, the title, and the kind of permission to use both. Adding to the joke is the fact that the Library of Congress classifies it not as a satire, parody, or literary work, but as a cookbook call number in the company of 5,306 other culinary works. This means that the cataloging librarian either didn't have a clue or else had a sense of humor. The name of the alien species, Kennemite, is likely a play on words for cannibal due to the ulterior motivations for humans. Well, that's it for this episode. Let me know, comment below what you thought of it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, see you later.